Welcome back to another episode of A Positive Insights. Brendan and myself had the pleasure of being joined by Greg Savage today, and we talked about scaling a recruitment business. Greg loves an analogy. I really like the one about you should always be hiring. So he calls it 100 coffees a year. So you should be having 100 coffees with different people throughout the year to always focus on that next hire. What did you enjoy, Brendan?
Yes, thank you, Darren. Greg does love an analogy. So keeping on that format, I think his Christmas Day plan, where he talks about having something you need to achieve by Christmas and locking it in stone, because we can all be, forgiven for letting the goalpost slip. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely agree on that. So, guys, please share the podcast and enjoy it. Welcome back to another episode of A Positive Insights. My name is Darren Cottrell from A Positive. I'm joined by Brendan Hurley, also from A Positive, and Greg actually joined us again for another episode.
Good to be here.
It must have been that good, the first one. So appreciate you coming.
It was memorable. I haven't stopped thinking about it.
It was some time ago.
Yeah.
Last time we were chatting, we were obviously talking about startups. One of the obviously key things that we chat about with agencies is going from a startup to obviously a scale up. It'd be great to get your thoughts on some of the key considerations when scaling up.
Yes, well, I do that for a living. I'm currently on the board of 16 recruitment companies, actually cutting that back, so maybe it's 14 now. And that's the brief. How are we going to grow? Typically might be a 15-person company who wants to get to 50, or a 50 that wants to get 150. I think the first thing, and it's a little bit similar to the advice I gave on startup, is just great clarity for the owners and then the second tier to understand what it is we're aiming at. I think a plan of let's work hard and grow is a terrible plan. It's just there's no structure to it. So I think it's more a vision. And I believe, and this is really important, I believe in a 3-year vision, which might be, I'm going to just make this up, but it's pretty realistic. We're a 15-person company now, and in 3 years we're going to have 50 staff. We're going to have diversified from perm only into temp, and we're going to be in 3 new disciplines. Okay, that would be, and we're going to be turning over X million dollars and have an operating profit of Y. That's a good vision. And it's important we come back to it, and it's like our guiding star. That's where we're heading. And by the way, as circumstances change, we can flip that vision a little bit. That's okay. Where it really starts to get cut through is, I believe, in what I call a Christmas Day plan. And I've had this conversation with everyone who runs the business. And a Christmas Day plan has nothing to do with Christmas. You can call it a New Year's Day plan. You can call it any date you like. But the point is, it's roughly 12 months away. And that then brings things into focus, because 12 months is not very long, really. So you can say we're a 15-person company now. That's our vision, to be 50 and all that. But where are we going to be on the 25th of December? Today's the 1st of February. Where are we going to be? And then you can start to say, well, the debate can rage. I think we can get to 50, says somebody. That's ridiculous, says somebody else. What would we be happy with? Well, let's get to 25 people. Right. What are their jobs going to be? What leadership changes do we have to make? Do we have to change our tech to achieve that? Are we going to move it from accounting into marketing? By the 20, and all those things are laid out. And it's wonderfully crystallizing and incredibly powerful, because Christmas Day is, by definition, not that far away, no matter when you talk about it. And so that helps people really clarify what the actions need to be by Christmas. But that's not enough. I then go for a 90-day plan. So you've got your Christmas Day. But then it's like, okay, 90 days from now, 3 months, what are we going to have done, and who's going to have done it to lead us to that? And that's going to be, okay, Darren, you're going to find us a temp. We're going to get into accounting temp. That's our vision. And we said we're going to have 25 temps by Christmas Day. Well, you have to find us a temp accounting leader, and you have to have presented us that person in 90 days. And your job is whatever it is, and 90 days. It's the most powerful and simplest mechanism I've seen to actually get traction in growing a business. Because I promise you this, if I had $1 for every time I'd sat in a board meeting where strategies were talked about and visions, none of which were ever executed. So in actual fact, you do need a strategy, you need a vision, but actually the biggest differentiator between those who scale and those who don't are those who can execute, implement, do those things. If you've got a plan where individuals are held accountable, and I know we're going to talk later about an advisor. That's where I'm very helpful in coming up with the plan and shaping that with them, but being the voice of accountability, because I'm coming back in 90 days. And if you guys haven't done it, I'm going to say, why not? Now, you have a choice of firing me, but you typically don't, because I'm the person, in this case, or the advisor, or the CEO, whoever it might be, who says, we are going to hit those numbers. And we're going to hold everyone accountable. And that's how you shift things forward. So if anyone's listening to this who's trying to scale a business, number one, get a vision in place so you know what the goal is. Number two, Christmas Day. Now, if you're doing this on the 21st of November, it could be Christmas Day next year, or the 30th of June. It doesn't matter. It's a measurable period of time that is not 3 years and not 90 days. Something you can really achieve, and then go for your 90-day plan. And of course, when the 90 days is up, you have your next 90-day plan. Next 90 days, and then it's Christmas. And then you've achieved it.
I quite like that. And I like the fact you say you come back after 90 days. It's important to have tough love as well. So if you're not hitting the plan, then you're obviously telling them.
Look, you need a management, a leadership team that understand that if we agree to a plan, we're going to hit it, or we're going to advise the leadership team way before why we're not. Things can go wrong, right? We're going to hire a team, and you do hire the person, and she resigns on day 2. Well, that's going to push it back another 90 days. We understand. We're not like some draconian, general in an army requiring people to just achieve. But mostly, there's no vision, or there's lots of talk about vision, and there's no implementation of the actions. I mean, that is epidemic in our industry.
So what are some of the common mistakes, obviously being on the board of 14 companies, what are the common mistakes that people make?
Well, not having a strategy and a plan is fundamental. Aiming far too high and with too many things. If you're going to grow your recruitment business, having a plan that says by Christmas Day we're going to do these 18 things is not going to work. It usually just needs to be 2 or 3. So we're going to grow our permanent business in accounting from 6 to 10. We're going to start a temporary business, and by Christmas Day we're going to have 25 temps working. And we're going to review and implement a better ATS because the one we've got now is not working. That's enough. You do that by Christmas Day, you've completely shifted your company. Mostly people are juggling 50 things, dropping them all. So that's not good.
So we talked about big companies here and putting in some strategic goals and so forth, but what about when it's a 2-3-man band and they're trying to scale and they've got those hires that are coming in, and there's about trying to offload power or offload responsibilities that they might not be comfortable in doing?
Well, that the difficulty in doing that is one of the main reasons companies are held back. Now, there's a few nuances to this. First of all, and I spend a lot of my time talking to people about this, an individual or maybe 2 who started a recruitment company can only really see themselves in one role, and that's being the biggest biller and the CEO. Firstly, your business is not going to grow unless somebody actually takes on the responsibility of growing the business, which is not being the biggest biller. And you've got to play to your strengths. One of the most difficult conversations I ever had with an owner of a recruitment company, and he couldn't get beyond 15, was to tell him he was the worst manager of people I'd ever met in my life, but one of the best recruiters. And to say to him, what you need to do is to recruit and win business and be the face of the business and encourage people, but let's get a professional people manager in. And he said to me, but I'm the owner. I said, you can be the owner, but have that different role. And to his credit, he did it. It's a 50-person business now. Because they've got a person in, he may have ADD, whatever it's called, but he couldn't sit for 20 minutes and talk to someone about KPIs. He wanted to talk to candidates. And that was fine. He needed to play to his strengths. But we got somebody else in who was good at that. So I think there's that aspect of it. Mostly I would say that you can manage about 8 recruiters, and then if you're going to grow beyond that, and that's why we have the Valley of Death. The Valley of Death is about 15 people. You see a lot of recruitment companies who want to scale get to 15 people, then they get to 16, 17, and 3 months later it's back down to 9 because everything's imploded. It happens time and time again, sometimes to the same business. And it's because the leadership haven't had the ability to create this second tier of management. And I reckon you want at least a billing manager to be brought through. That billing manager might initially must be billing and managing one person, 2, 3, 4, maximum of 8. And you probably want 2 or 3 of those people coming up, because if you're going to go from a 6-person company to a 26-person company, you're going to need 3 team leaders, each managing 7 or 8. And above that are the owners. Or the owners could be one of those, but then you need at least one person who's playing the MD, CEO role. Does that make sense? And that's how we've got to do it. And most people don't. They're just like, let's work hard and let's hire people and she can report to, they can just work together. No, people need leadership and they need accountability. And you need those who can lead and recruit. And in time, you might have people who mostly lead. But even anyone who leads in recruitment must always be involved in sales. And that's another thing to remember. As companies scale, they end up with all these non-billing managers who are very good at whatever it is they do. When the market declines, they have to get fired. So you don't have to bill. But even when I was the CEO of the last company I ran, I still did I think 60 client visits in my last year. I didn't arrange many of them, but I went on them, won business, got to know my consultants better. I was full on in sales. I didn't fill jobs. But everybody has got to be sales facing in recruitment. Everybody, even the people that you don't think should be. I like to get my HR manager to go out and meet clients, because why not? Everyone should be connected to the customer.
Yeah, like talking about that middle management, but when you're growing a team, like, is there any advice around how you identify what they're good at? So like when you bring in a rookie, are they going to go to a consultant? Are they going to go to a manager? Is there any type of format that you have to really show like career progression for the people in the business, but then making sure they're actually moving into the right roles? So you talk about obviously top billers that move into a management role. Well, that's not what they suit. Is there any? Well,
let's start with that. So that's one of the biggest mistakes in recruitment, is that the top biller becomes the manager. Right? Now, there's no reason. We talked about sport before this, and we talked about South Africa winning the Rugby World Cup again, and then we talked about West Ham being better than Tottenham. So let's stick with the sporting analogy. The best player on a team is not necessarily the right person to be the captain.
Yeah.
She or he could be. They could have that, but they're totally different jobs. It's the same in recruitment. The biggest biller is not logically necessarily the leader of recruiters. She could be. Often, I was not. I was a good recruiter. I was not the best, but I was much better at leading people, as it turns out. And I think mostly recruitment company owners default to keeping the peace. So they promote big billers because those big billers think that their career is better on a hierarchical promotion. But it's actually in many cases the end of their career. So if we put the big biller, who's not a good leader, into a leadership role, everybody loses. The people who report to them lose, they lose, and the company loses. So you need to have long conversations with people about what a career in recruitment really is. It could be managing people, or it could be like my friend Graham Whelan, who's the best recruiter I've ever known. He's retired now. He's 45 years a recruiter. When he started Recruitment Solutions, we did get him managing people, and he was fine at it, but he loved candidates and clients. Till the day he retired at 65. He loved it. And he was brilliant at it. And so who had a more successful career, him or me? Well, probably him. He's probably impacted more people. But if you don't even worry about that, just who got the most fun out of it, it was equal. But I went down the right route for me, and he went down the right route for him. So that's an important thing about leadership. In terms of hiring people, well, of course, that's the million-dollar question. I think for an industry that's in hiring, we are terrible at hiring. And I think there's many reasons for that, one of which is we often hire in urgency. Oh, Betty's resigned and Mary's leaving. Quick, hire 2 people. And, those tend up being the first 2 we see. So one of my big bits of advice for people trying to lead and scale is you should have 100 cups of coffee strategy. Do you know what that is? Of course you don't. That's why you got me here. 100 cups of coffee is based on the philosophy and the belief that you should be recruiting even if you're not hiring. And what I mean by that is, just because you have no vacancies, often what happens is an owner of a recruitment company says, I'm full, I'm good, I'm not hiring. Well, I'm like, that's good, but you should be recruiting. What do you mean? Meet people. And every owner of a recruitment company, or every leader, should have 100 cups of coffee with prospective hires a year. That's 2 a week. But if you want to scale your business, the only way you're going to do it is through people. And if you're going to get the best people, you've got to invest time in it. And people are like, I'm too busy. And I'm like, really? You want to grow your business and you're too busy to look at hiring people? I'm only asking for 2 hours a week. And you build up, so you interview somebody who's a prospect, you like them, you have good, and you say, you're very frank. You say, we don't have any roles available now, but we are growing the best recruitment company in Australia and we want the best people. Let's talk. And most people are happy to do that. And then you keep in touch with them every 3 months, and 6 months later, a year later, you hire them. Or you meet them, they're not right, you put a line through the name, put that to bed, and keep going with your cups of coffee. So the first thing is hire strategically. Don't hire knee-jerkedly, whatever the word is. Don't hire in a knee-jerk. And that will save a lot of mistakes. Because I promise you what happens is people know in their heart of hearts they're wrong, but they convince themselves they're right. And every time I've done that, I said, I'm going to hire Darren because I've got some niggling doubts about him, but there's a vacancy. He'll be right. Put him in there. Never works. Yeah. So you have to follow. I'm not saying you hire on gut, but if the team doesn't believe they're right and you still put them in there, you deserve what you get. Another tip I'd give on the whole hiring and scaling is only ever hire people who raise the average. This is good advice too, by the way. I'm telling you all my secrets. All these people listening to this will grow great companies. Brilliant. It's the last thing you do before, you've interviewed the person, you like them, you've reference checked them, it looks good. 3 other people have interviewed them. You even got some of the team. Everyone is thinking we should hire. Ask this question. If I hire the person into my business, there's 12 of us, and I hire this 13th person, is this person going to raise the average of our business? Raise the average of what? Raise the average of energy, ethics, skill, resilience, so all the things we value. Are we going to be slightly better as a team because of this person? And if the answer is they're good, but no, we'll be 5% worse, what are you trying to do? Create a shitter business? So never hire unless it is raising the average. And it's not scientific. It's not empirical. But it's, if I've asked that question, everyone's looked around the room and gone, no, not really. So I said, why are we hiring a person that's going to bring our business, make our little business a little bit shitter?
Oh, look, it's so true. Like we've said before, it just takes one person to ruin the brand, ruin the culture.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
It's a very, very, very powerful thing. And then, of course, the final thing is when you are hiring, whether it's a rookie or, let's start with rookies, which we will go back to hiring those people as the market turns. You've got to not default to they look good, they sound good, he's a good lad, he plays rugby, we'll hire him. I've made decisions like that years ago. And that is not sound. You've got to identify what the characteristic personality traits, competencies are through intensive interviewing and behavioral interviewing and reference checking and testing, so you can make the decision based on what you know is going to make this person more likely to succeed. Remember, they're a rookie, so they've got no evidence of being a good recruiter. But where's the evidence of the resilience? Where's the interpersonal influencing skills? Even if they don't have them, do they have the potential? Or they are really retiring type who's not going. You can be a great recruiter as an introvert or an extrovert, but even introverts can be very strong personalities. So do they have the resilience? Do they have the sales potential? Do they have the influencing skills? Do they have the collaboration that we believe is part of our company culture? Yeah, we're a collaborative company, but we just hired this lone wolf, which you knew he was a lone wolf because his whole history tells you that. So hire on the competencies, and then with more experienced people, don't be seduced. The amount of times I and others have hired a big biller who turned out to be terrible is manifold. So you've got to really dig into I'll give you an example of a classic mistake. The candidate, the recruiter, is experienced and they're telling the truth. They did bill $500,000 last year. A lot of people would hire them like that. But they billed $500,000 because they had 3 owners who were great business winners. They were fed everything. Now that's not a crime, but understand that they were fed and they transacted. In your business, you need someone who's going to win business. They'll fail. I know it sounds obvious, but this mistake's going to be made in Sydney and in Australia and in the world countless times today.
Yeah, I think I hear a lot of that where they'll hire a big biller and then the big biller has been so comfortable in their seat. For them to start again, they just don't have the energy.
Just don't have the energy and they're kind of resented. So there's a lot of things to look at. You've got to really dig into I'm not saying you don't hire a big biller or a successful person, but don't be seduced by the numbers or by the idea of all this money that's going to come in. Really, really spend time with the individual to work out what their strengths are, how they got to the success, and what they want to do in their new role. Do they still have the fire in the belly? And be honest about the other, a lot of the responsibility is on the owner of the hiring company who gilds the lily about what the person's going to get. And if they are starting a cold desk and there's not enough leads coming through, then it's better you're honest to see whether they're up for it. Then get them in there when they think it's a different job. It always implodes.
I'm always curious when a big biller wants to move.
Well, that's the first question.
What's the reason?
Look, you've got to be careful about that, but it's absolutely true. And I've warned so many people recently, because there's a lot of people on the market, or more people on the market. The first thing to understand is that typically, if a recruitment company has a big biller and a good performer and a valuable individual who's nice to have around, they will not let them go easily, right? They are working hard to keep those people in terms of environment, job and salary and all the rest of it. So if somebody comes along and says, I want to leave, I think you've really got to dig into the reasons. There can be reasons that are legitimate, but so often there's a secondary thing lurking that is not something you want to buy into. So be careful.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we're obviously talking about attracting people. What about retention piece? Like, when do you start to look at maybe a share scheme to retain like the top billers? Is there any recommendations around that, around retention?
Well, the first thing to understand about retention, which is separate to money, but it's more important, well, that's not true. It doesn't matter about the money if you don't get this part right. If you're a recruiter, you would have asked 1,000 candidates, why are you looking to change jobs? And one of the main reasons is, it comes up time and time again in different language, is I've stopped growing, I'm looking to develop, I feel as though I'm stagnating, I'm no longer learning, I don't get coached. And so the biggest retention tool is personal and professional growth. So coaching is retention. If you are helping people get better, if people are billing more, winning new clients, their self-esteem grows and they love their job. That's the first point. People think you're going to keep people with money. That's got to be right, don't get me wrong. But you've got to actually help people love their job and be successful. And that's why coaching is really a key requirement for any leader of a recruitment company. Training and all that's good. I've made pretty much a living out of some of that. But coaching is the real skill. And coaching is different. It's coaching people on the job. It's feedback in real time. It's having difficult conversations with people. And over time, they realize they're in an environment where they're constantly getting better. That is your best retention tool, because it'll flow on to self-esteem and money for the recruiter. In terms of the financial side, there are lots of mistakes made with giving people equity or allowing people to have equity. I'm not against it. I've done it, certainly. But it's not a solve-all, because if you're just a good recruiter, giving you 1% of equity or allowing you to buy 1% of equity doesn't actually aid retention at all, because it's not enough to be a financial handcuff. And it's not enough. And the psychology behind equity is money, but it's also like, I'm an owner. That's important, and that's good if you can allow your people to say, I'm an owner of this business. I've been here 6 years, and I'm a shareholder. It's like, go home and tell your mum and dad, and I'm not being facetious here. It's good, but it causes a lot. What a lot of owners don't realize: as soon as you've got a shareholder, they have rights, including full disclosure of all the information. You've got to act in the best interest of shareholders. There's a lot of things you don't want to have to think about. So you've got to ask yourself a real question: is if you are simply wanting to reward people for their performance and longevity, you can just give them money in some structured way. If you want to bind them to your business, it probably only really works in a leadership role, where it can be significant enough and where you're going to get leverage. And really the philosophy is, the only reason, being perfectly blunt with you, why you would give someone equity is if you own 100% of this pie. Say I own 100% of the pie. It's all mine. I got 100% equity. If I'm going to give you 20% equity, the only reason I do that, if you're going to help me make the pie so big that I've actually got more, even though I've got 80%. The 80% of the new pie is bigger than 100% of the old pie. Are you following me?
Yeah.
That's the leverage point. And you, as the one coming in, you can build an asset, you can feel part of the decision making, and you can create wealth.
So basically, you've got a business that's scaling. They're getting more and more people into the business. When's the perfect time or a right time for them to start considering getting a board in? And how does that look? And what sort of personality should they be attracting onto that board?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's a very misunderstood thing, I think. And I do have certain biases because it's what I do, but I can certainly see where it's worked better for my clients when certain things have been in place. The first thing is that if you get a board advisor, you need to get a person who is not just a rubber stamp for your own ideas. A lot of people do that. They get a person who's going to, like an accountant or a lawyer or somebody who's known to them, and that person gives advice, but basically just rubber stamps everything that the ownership wants to do. And I've got nothing against accountants and lawyers, obviously. Didn't mean that. But that is no good. You need a challenger as your advisor. You need a challenger who's going to challenge your assumptions and going to test the strategy. And for that to really work, I believe that it's only really effective, and there can be exceptions, if your advisor has had experience in the recruitment industry. I can't see how it would really work otherwise. You can certainly get great financial advice from a smart person, great legal advice, also great business strategy advice. But the nuances, the things I've said today about growing a recruitment business, you can only say if you've been on the inside. And that's not because I'm clever, it's just because I have been on the inside for so long and made every mistake that I've talked about today. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to make the advisory process sacred, for want of a better word. And what I mean by that is there are regular meetings. They might be 8 weekly or quarterly. They set in, we can change the date if somebody gets sick, but you don't skip them. There's a lot of preparation done. So whenever I take on a client, I say, you realize this is going to involve a lot of work for you. It's going to be work for me, of course. You're paying me, but there's going to be a lot of work for you. This is not just, and I say this, I'm not your therapist. I'm your business advisor, so you're going to have to, if you want me to give you advice on commission structures, you're going to have to give me a lot of information before the board meeting and really think about it. And then the final thing that a good advisor will do is keep the leadership team accountable to their decisions. And funnily enough, and it kind of upsets me a bit, when I say to my clients, look, is it time for me to move on? Is my use up? And they say, no, Greg, we need you. And I go, oh, great. And I'm hoping they're going to say, we need you because your advice is so good. But what they typically say is, you keep us accountable for doing what we said we're going to do, and that's the most valuable thing. When you think about it, if you two dudes own a recruitment company and you make up a plan and you don't do it, who's going to keep you accountable? You're just going to have a beer together and say, we were busy. But if I'm here, I'm going to say, I don't know anyone who's not busy. You're a pair of marshmallows.
Thanks.
Yeah, when are you going to get this done, or do you want to just be losers? And I will say that to you because it's true. It's absolutely true. If it's not true, if you're not a loser because you fail, you're a loser if you make promises and don't deliver on them.
Yeah.
And that is the key. The account. Remember the 100-day plan and getting. When they leave, and I say to people, and a good advisor will, don't agree to this unless you're going to do it, because this is going to move the needle for us. It's exciting. Don't come back in 90 days and say I was busy, because that's just the weakest possible thing a person can say. We're all busy, that's a given. But you agree to do this because you want to change your life and the life of your team. Now, obviously, don't get me wrong. If people have got sick or other things came up, I understand. But mostly what happens in recruitment companies, we just talk about strategy. We never implement. So that's what an advisor's real role is. And it can be incredibly powerful. I've seen it work with me. I've seen it work not so well with me as well. I would say that the only thing I missed out talking about was, while you don't need an advisor who's cut from the same cloth as you, character-wise or personality-wise, you've got to have basically the same values of business. I haven't had this with any client, but I've had it with people that I've decided not to work with, because I've just felt that their ethos, their view of the world is just not the same as mine. So it's not going to work. Things like candidate care or treating consultants in a way that is human as well as requiring good results. There's a lot of people who've got different views on those sorts of things. So there's no point because it's not going to be a match.
So would this be the type of stuff that you'd ask before you?
Yeah. I go into that. I'd go like I'm cutting back clients now because I need to work less. But in all the clients that have had, there would have been 3 that we've agreed it's not right for each one I have taken on. And that might be as simple as you do industrial placements and I don't know anything about it. It's not my world. But it might be just that I can see that they're not really committed to the work it's going to take, or they have a churn and burn type attitude to their staff. Which, we get turnover in recruitment, but my view is that it's our job to develop those people, treat them fairly. My management mantra, this is getting off the point, is accountability with empathy. I believe it's my job to make people accountable, as you've heard several times today. And if you're not accountable, there'll be consequences. And by that, I mean, it just might be an awkward conversation. But it's with empathy. It's like, I understand it's tough. I understand that today you might want to freewheel a bit because that's the blend that, to my mind, works the best. And what you tend to get is people who default to one or the other. It's all, do it my way, 100 of these bites a night, get the fuck on with it. Or, hey man, everyone's trying, it's about wellness, and we're like a hippie commune. And to me, neither of those things are good. Not for running a business, I mean. So you're getting my unvarnished views.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That was really, really great advice.
So it'd be good just to close off. So what's the one piece of advice you'd give someone looking to scale up?
Well, I think if you've made the decision to scale, you're doing that because you want to create something different and you want to create something that potentially is an asset that you could sell one day. That's typically why people do it. And if that's the case, the piece of advice I would give anybody is to constantly have in mind the word and the concept of sustainability. You need to create a sustainable business, and the definition of that is a business that is not reliant on the day-to-day input of the owners. And we've talked about a lot of those things today, but the hallmarks of a sustainable business includes a high percentage of GP, gross profit, net fee income coming from temporary and contract. I like 60%. People often get me wrong when I say that. They think you don't like perm. I love perm. I absolutely adore it. It's extremely profitable, but it's like a very unfaithful lover. It will go away. So you want 60%, that'd be the first thing. Second thing is you don't want concentration risk. And that means you don't want too much business with one client. Anything over 10% we want a lot of business, but we want to spread it across clients and grow a number of foundation clients, if you like. Concentration risk also with recruiters. You don't want 6 recruiters in a room, which typically means that 2 of them are billing about half of it or more. You want 15 recruiters. If you've got that, one person leaves, it's an irritating Friday. But if you've got 6 people and one of the big billers leaves, it's a disaster. So you need technology that's scalable. You need a second tier of management, which is something that is the stumbling block for a lot of companies that can't get that right mix of a person who can bill and manage, which is one of the hardest jobs in recruitment. So all those things make up for a sustainable business. And the beauty of a sustainable business is that it's highly profitable in the good times and therefore worth a lot, and it's very resistant to a downturn. And so you won't go bust, which is also a good thing.
Amazing. Greg, we'd like to thank you again. You've been awesome.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
So anyone listening today, please like and subscribe to A Positive Insights. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks.